Welcome back to Invest in Rome, where we unpack how to build wealth, live free, and invest with purpose. Today, we're deep diving into how to start small, maybe renting out a room, then scaling into owning multifamily properties, investing overseas, and building your network. If you've ever felt stuck wondering, is real estate really for me? You're about to hear from someone who's walking proof that you don't need millions to get started. You just need a smart strategy and the right mindset. Marielle Walter started with a house hack. No big inheritance, no trust fund, just a strategy and a vision. Fast forward, she's investing in Portugal, scaling multifamily deals, and leading Powerhouse Women, a fast-growing community of women turning knowledge into general wealth. Hi, Marielle. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on.
Same.
Let's just jump right into it. What was the defining moment that pushed you into real estate? Because you had a whole nother career before this. And like most people I know who dive into real estate full time, they've come from someplace else for a reason.
Yeah, my defining moment was I was working in the nonprofit sector, which is like very different than a lot of real estate investors. And I realized I wanted to do cause-based work. And I realized that I felt constrained to do as much work and make as much impact as I wanted to. And I realized, like, hey, we're sitting around and asking wealthy people for money a lot of the time to get our good work done. And I'd started investing in real estate. I'd started house hacking. And just with those few investments, I started seeing a lot of money. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's money to be made in real estate. Like, I feel like I could be on the other side of the equation, right? I could be making the money in real estate and then I could be funneling it into the good work that I want to see done. And there was a couple things also that were happening in the world where I was just completely horrified. And I really wished I had more resources to put behind it myself. And that was just my moment where I was like, that's it. Like, I'm diverting, I'm leaving the nonprofit sector for now, and I'm going into real estate full time. And I switched into flipping at that point. So I was doing like single family investing in DC, flipping. Then I started investing in multifamily. And I've gone into different strategies from there.
So wait, let's jump back. So what was it exactly that that kind of really like was like, this is the last straw. This like, I want to make the jump.
Well, I mean, it was definitely a combination of things. I was at a point where I was like watching the news one night and there was some really like awful things happening with children in some part of the world that was going on. I won't go into detail about it. And I just like had this feeling where I was like, why do I feel resource constrained now that I can't just dive in and be like, here's $1 gazillion so I can like not, isn't happening anymore. Right. So there was that. There was the piece where it was like, I felt so constrained. I wanted to jump out of my skin. And it's frustrating when you're doing work that you care about, that you feel is very important, but you don't feel like you can make the impact that you want to make. I think a lot of people feel like that. They're kind of like in these jobs and they're like, I think what I'm doing is important. Why do I feel like I'm missing something? Like, why am I feeling this emptiness? And then on the other side of the equation, the house hacking was going like epically. Like, and I was raised on an organic vegetable farm. Like, I didn't have a financial education. And when I jumped into real estate, it was because like I heard it was a good idea to buy real estate. I wanted to own and I wanted to have more freedom to be able to travel at the time. I also didn't want to just be stuck in the office. And so I bought my first house hack just because it was like, it was a good idea. And I didn't want to pay rent or mortgage anymore. It wasn't even
Wait,
house
so
hack.
wait, can you just explain a little bit about the house hack? Like, did you know, or like,
Yeah,
I feel like it's a more popular term now, but back then, like, how did you know? Like,
it wasn't a thing back
yeah, it
then.
wasn't
No,
a thing, right?
all I knew is that like I was paying an exorbitant amount of money to somebody else to live in downtown DC. And it was fabulous. But like, I realized, I'd get like a house or I'd get an apartment and I'd like rent rooms out to other people. I was already like apartment hacking before it was a thing. And I realized like I could be owning something, right? And other people could be paying me. And when I started like looking at the math, I was like, and I think I would pay nothing. I think I'd even make money. And so without any education literally at all.
Wait, you didn't pay. So what, you house hacked and didn't pay anything?
And so, yeah, so I just went out and I was like, I'm going to buy a house. And I started looking in DC in these different locations. And I found an area that was like pretty affordable, low crime rates, near the metro. There was all this dirt and a bulldozer at the metro. And I was like, oh, I didn't actually like think to research what was going in there or anything. But I was like, that looks good. Like, looks like something's going in there. So, like, totally unsophisticated, but I had enough information to be dangerous and like make a move. Right. And so I knew I could rent rooms and I knew it would pay for the mortgage. And so I bought my first house. It was a 3-bedroom, and I converted it into a 4-bedroom by like separating the living room and dining room. Cause like college kids, young professional, we don't care if we have like a special dining room area, right? We just want like cheap rent, in the city. And so I had the 4-bedroom, and then I also made the basement into basically what was like my free DC apartment. And so I was able to not pay rent or mortgage anymore. I even cash flowed a little bit. And also
Nice.
I went to travel. Yeah. So I really wanted to see the world at that point. And so I'm off traveling for like years. I negotiate to work my nonprofit job at the time remotely. Don't tell them, but I go off to like
Oh, they
Argentina.
didn't know.
I'm like a program manager. I'm like managing their program from a hostel in like Argentina and like Chile
They're like,
and then Colombia.
luckily you didn't have to zoom in because they're like, why is it nighttime here and it's daytime there?
Yeah, right. Of course, I was like, somebody from our program must speak Spanish. It would be such a benefit. And like, you're right. And so that worked out for a while. And so I just traveled for like years, and I'd come back to DC now and then. And so here was the kicker was that I was coming back to DC and like realizing like, oh, checking into my property value. And after like 2 or 3 years, I was like, wow, the house appreciated like $100,000. And meanwhile, I'm getting cash flow out of it. I'm not paying any
So
living.
smart.
And that was the like moment where I was just like, holy cow, like I'm going to try to do this again. Like, is this a fluke, or is real estate really a thing like this? And so I bought another one, and the same thing happened. And so I'm sitting on, like hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity now, realizing like feeling constrained in nonprofit work because I can't make the impact that I want to make because I don't have enough money to make that impact really. And recognizing like this huge opportunity in real estate. So that was when it was like, and I decided to make the move. And also, I guess I should share about like the women's initiative, because also simultaneously, like a lot was going on. I had a daughter at one point, and I was like a single mom, and I was still house hacking. I did it differently where we had, more space. And the women in my life started asking me like, hey, like how is it that you're able to like work from home? I was still part-time consulting from home, spend so much time with your daughter, travel. And I was like able to say, hey, some of these real estate investments, just a few real estate investments can be really, really beneficial to having more freedom in your life to do these types of things. And then I realized I was super passionate about talking to women about real estate. And I just like, it totally lit me up. I loved it. And so I founded this group, Powerhouse Women Real Estate Investing, to bring women in my life and in my community together to talk about real estate investing, to talk about partnerships. And over time that grew as well into something, something bigger where we actually did start doing group investments and things like that together. So that's been another fun piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. So you kind of coach and mentor women, and especially like newer women in real estate
Yeah.
to start investing.
Yeah. So I wouldn't call myself a coach. I know maybe I a little bit of that, but my passion is really in like getting women into deals. So education is a piece of the puzzle, but like action is a huge piece. And like
Hmm.
my passion is really to find the women, or have them find me, who have been like learning and saving and learning and saving and not yet investing. Because this is where I'm like, okay, these are the people that I really want to help, the people I really want to get into deals. And so I started, because when I first founded the group, I was trying to figure out like what's going to be unique about this. There's a lot of groups out there for women to, learn and whatnot, but I wanted to fulfill a need that wasn't being met. And I realized that there was a lot of these women who were learning and they were saving and they still weren't investing. And I started putting out their group projects, like group flips. And overnight, like there was like 100 women on the waiting list who wanted to do group flips. I had founded it on the Facebook group platform. And so I would put something out in the forum, right? And so then we started doing group flips. And it was awesome. It was really awesome to see women who had kind of been on the sidelines for a while that were afraid to do something alone. Right? Because it's kind of scary making a big move in real estate.
Yeah. Is that why you think most like women are out there who are interested in real estate? Like they're not taking action because you think they don't want to do it alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is fear, like fear of the unknown and fear of going it alone. And also like the perception of resource constraints. Also, I think that people perceive that they need to have a lot of money to invest in real estate. As real estate investors, we know that that's not the case, right? You can actually invest without money and use other people's money. But a lot of people who are newer do have the perception that you need a lot of money. So a lot of women are also thinking, or a lot of people are also thinking like, oh, I might have too limited of resources, or I might not want to put all of my resources into my one first deal. But when you have a group, and like say you have like 4, 5 women who are each bringing like $10,000, $15,000, for the cost that it takes to do this deal with hard money or something like that, right? That's a lot less scary. And it's honestly, it's a lot less risky because, oftentimes, somebody losing that 10K versus losing that 50 or 60, that's very different, space to be playing in. And so I think that also helps to remove the barriers that, yeah, it's more fun. It's less scary. It's definitely confidence building and it supports women in doing more deals with the resources that they have on hand, I think.
Yeah. And for sure, you're definitely proof that you don't, like with your house hacking, you don't need a lot of money to get started. Especially for anyone who's young out there listening, like just get started in real estate. You'll figure it out. Like you don't need a ton of money to get started. And house hacking is a good way to get into it, like as a first move.
House hacking is a brilliant strategy. And the other thing, like myth that I don't like is that, like I said, that you need to have a lot of money to invest in real estate. And like once you start investing, you realize like there's a role for everyone. And if you don't have money, that's okay. You just need to find really good deals and bring them to people with money. Because there's a lot of people with money that want to invest that don't know how to find deals or they don't have time to find the deals. So there's a huge opportunity for people to break into real estate just by learning how to analyze a deal, like do some outreach, analyze a deal. Today, a ton can be done with AI also. But you find a good deal, and you connect with a community, like you're going to be able to find a partner that's going to bring funds to that deal. So I love to help women in like crafting those partnerships, whether they're group investing or just looking for like one-off partnerships. Like we just had a success story about a woman in the group that I posted who did her first triplex deal. And, she pulled in a financial partner to support with that money to close this deal that she didn't have all of it on hand, right? She had some of it and not all. And so she brought a partner in and she's going to be active in the management of the deal. And the financial partner brings the funds and gets that return with less work on their behalf, right? And so there's a ton of different ways to structure things. And I love to be able to share as much as I can to remove barriers like in the perception of investing that a lot of people have that keep them on the sidelines.
And so now you've moved beyond borders, and now you've jumped ship and are investing in Portugal.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
how did you end up investing in Portugal? And with you don't speak Portuguese, do you?
I speak like maybe 5 words in Portuguese. I feel bad I don't actually speak more. I assumed I had made one of those like, foreigner assumptions like, oh, I speak Spanish. And it looks like there's some words that are similar. So like I'll be able to speak Portuguese. No, it is not like in the pronunciation completely different. And it's been a challenge, but you don't need to speak Portuguese to invest in Portugal. So that's great news.
Yeah, I was curious about the barrier there. Like, but I mean, it sounds like there's resources in
Yeah.
Portugal. Like, I'm sure that you could find.
Yeah, more than a third of the population, I think, like statistically speaking, you can fact check me on that, speaks English anyways. But then when you're in the cities where oftentimes we're investing, it's an even higher percentage. So there's a ton of professionals that speak English. And so that's who, you're going to want to connect with if you want to invest in Portugal and you don't speak Portuguese. And yeah, there's just a huge network of folks who work with foreign investors.
So, how do you analyze? How is that compared to here? Like, how do you analyze a deal over there in Portugal?
Yeah, it's definitely very different. Like you definitely want to set up your boots on the ground, going into, say the Facebook forums, like going to the Facebook groups for expats is kind of where I started. And I figured out like who did somebody else work with? Which mortgage broker did they work with? What agent did they work with? Are there other investors out there, property managers, and just start to build your boots on the ground network. And then, you can start leveraging them for the information that you need to analyze a deal. And yeah, things are definitely different. The cool thing is that you can use Portuguese bank financing. So like number one, like get connected with a mortgage broker and start to see what you might qualify for. And don't worry if you feel like you're not going to qualify, pull in a partner that will. Find the deal for them and do some management. But so they're financing oftentimes like 70%, 75%, 80% of a deal, which is super cool. And then their interest rates are great. So like
Better than ours in the United States.
we were recently between like 2.8 and 3.1% interest
Wow.
on a
This
refi
year.
and deal that I'm doing there. Yeah, yeah. It's wild. Yeah. So that's awesome. So you're going to like punch that into your analysis if you plan on using bank financing. And then, when it comes to like figuring out what things are worth, you'd work with an agent and things are done a little bit differently there. They are looking at like euro per square meter oftentimes, but like at least, 6 months ago, a year ago, when I was speaking to the agent, like the information was still not quite available on like sold comps. Like here we're using sold comps. Like you
Hmm.
wouldn't use what's on the market. That's not as reliable, but there it is now or was recently the way that you had to go about looking at what something you'd potentially buy it for. So that was a little bit different for me. And there's been conversation about like owner data, being more difficult to find there, not being accessible like it is here. But like, is that changing? Like, so there's things are always changing in the real estate industry there. So like something that I say today might not be the case in a few months, but take it with a grain of salt and then do your own research. But things like that, you're going to notice like, ooh, that's a little bit different than my process. But you're just going to rely on trusted contacts there, right? And people who have done this before to pull these numbers. So then you're going to get that number together. You're going to need to know if you're buying an investment property and you want to rent it. You can use websites to see like what something is going to rent for, like Idealista, for example. Portugal is a good place to go for like longer term and midterm. So you can go to the areas you're interested in, kind of look at what's already for rent, like look at the finishes and whatnot and see, based on your strategy, your rental strategy and finishes, like what you think your place would rent for. I also always connect with local property management companies, at least, 1, 2, 3 companies, making sure that the area that I'm looking into is good for renting. You want to be careful about like your unit count too, because like some of the cities get super saturated with studios, for example, and it could be harder to rent than if you have like a 2, 3, or 4 bedroom where there's not as many of them. So you can factor those things in. Another thing that's super interesting is like the insurance costs and the taxes that you would put in, like the monthly costs or whatever across the year are so much lower. Like I've been quoted like $400-500 for like my property taxes or my insurance, which, in the States, it's often way higher than that. And so it's very cool that those are generally lower. But the one thing that you also need to consider in your numbers is that closing costs are higher because they have a really expensive tax that you actually pay at close. So that makes your
What are
property tax.
closing costs like?
You want to actually estimate more like 7% or maybe even a little bit higher just to be safe closing in Portugal. But then another cool thing is they do have these like development zones called like an ARU zones, where if you're buying and renovating and renting in those areas, you might have the opportunity to get money back from that tax that you paid up front. So that really helps. That can be like tens of thousands of dollars that you're then going to get back. So that helps. There's definitely some incentives. So you can look into the different areas that you're considering and seeing what type of incentive programs are available. I think that that's a lot of like the special considerations. Oh, I think one more I would share has to do with short-term rental. Like there's a reason that I didn't mention like go to Airbnb and see what your, Portuguese dream vacation home is going to rent for on Airbnb, because Portugal has been restricting the ability to use Airbnb and do short-term rentals in a lot of places. I don't think it's restricted everywhere still at the moment. This again has been going back and forth a lot. But so that's something you need to be cautious about. There are some cities where you're pretty much not able to do it. Some cities where there's like pockets where you can still do Airbnb. So I always just recommend like make sure your investment's going to work as a long-term or a midterm. And if it is, but then you end up being able to do Airbnb, awesome. It's like a cherry on top, but I would not base my entire investment on Airbnb, like short-term rental
Yeah,
numbers.
it's risky. Like the coastal areas, the most popular areas are completely cut off from short-term rental possibility, right? Like Lisbon and
Lisbon, like last I did research on Lisbon because I don't actually invest in Lisbon, but yeah, you were not allowed
Mhm.
to do any short-term rentals. People are getting around it, but you again, that's a different strategy that I'm not gonna advise or recommend, but there's some
Around it, a
that
loophole.
totally. Yes, yes. But then, in Porto, for example, they have like a saturation rate that they're looking at. So it's like if you hit a specific saturation rate, you can't have any more licenses there. But if you're under that, then you can still have licenses. Where I own in Caminha in northern Portugal, we had no issue getting a license there. So that was good. And you have them for years. I can't remember how many, but for years once you get them. So still doable. We do have a short-term rental at that property in northern Portugal now.
Cool. That's a really pretty town too.
It really is. Yeah, when I first heard about it, I was like, "Oh my goodness." It has like river on one side, ocean on the other side. Our balcony overlooks the coast of Spain. So it's like it has this little historic downtown area. So I'll put like major plug for Camina. It's gorgeous. It's where a lot of people in Porto have their like country homes and they'll go up for, weekends and holidays and things like that. So there's like a lot of like local tourism. A lot of people from Spain come down, and we really liked it because the numbers, I mean, you could buy for really affordable. Like I'll just put it out there. We bought for 165,000 euro, a 5-bedroom flat overlooking the river and the coast of Spain. And it rents for like over 200 a night on, in like the busy season in the summer. And so like when you could buy for that and rent for that, we were like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's like a really interesting opportunity, right?
With a
And so
low interest rate
yeah,
mortgage.
it's interesting. Even at that time, it was like, oh, they're so high. Like when we bought, it was for, I think that we bought it for something percent. And there are a lot of people use adjustable interest rates. And so it was really funny. We had this experience where we just like checked our Portuguese bank account and noticed our mortgage had just dropped like 50 or $60 or something. And it's not a super big mortgage payment anyways, right? And we were like, what? That's amazing. Like it just adjusted down. And that's like what they had told us we could do too, is get an adjustable, wait till it adjusted down into the twos, which is like more normal for them, and then lock it. So that's brilliant. So yeah, it's already on its way. But we're working on a refinance for that one because we're attempting our Portuguese burr. So we want to get, some of that
Nice.
we put out initially back and kind of have that infinite return and no money in the deal left in that one. So
Nice.
it's interesting doing it all in a new market. But yeah, it's been so far. We're excited about, the investments there.
Yeah, it sounds like a journey.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely has been. Yeah,
But in
now
a
I'm like,
beautiful place.
yeah, where else
Like,
could we?
good excuse to go take a business trip.
Exactly. I'm like, hey, let's take a family trip, and we've got offs here.
Write it off as a business expense. Checking on the rental.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and this new project will be interesting because it's going to be a little bit more of a renovation than we did on the last one. So in Porto, so it'll be a little bit different of a project. We have the ability to add additional floors as well on it. Like it's interesting in Porto, you can buy like the older buildings that are smaller, and then you can see like what they're zoned for in that area now, because they'll be like everything around it is like towering stories over it, and you're like, ooh.
Oh, build up.
And stack on it, yeah. But the costs, the renovation costs are high there. And so you really have to look at the numbers and whether it's worth it. Sometimes it's like maybe it wouldn't be worth it to just rent like, a unit, but maybe if they were to be like licensed and sold off or something, it could be worth it. So again, that's just something to be cautious about, and, with renovation projects in Portugal, careful in the numbers. So we're
Yeah,
kind of looking at that and have so far only decided to do maybe like a duplex or triplex and then go from there.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's deep dive into some stories
Okay.
because I love to hear a good story.
For sure. What
Um,
type?
so what is the most unsexy real estate move you made that turned out to be crazy profitable?
Ooh, okay. So unsexy real estate. So I would say that highly distressed multifamily is not sexy. It's scary to a lot of people. It's usually an ugly asset, and it's usually, considered higher risk. We bought something that was 24 units, 85% vacant. Anything that was rented was severely under market. And it was a big project. We ended up putting 250K into that deal. So I found some awesome partners from the group that came in as financial partners, and they've been supporting, navigating the project along the way. And we were able to update those units within about a year, a little under a year. We had a pretty good, I think it was like 85% occupied. And it's
That's
primarily
pretty
residential.
fast. So we did all the units and filled like
Yeah.
all the
I mean,
vacancies in a
luckily,
year.
a lot of them were like, they weren't like full gut buildings. The previous owners had been hit hard by like COVID, and also by trying to work with someone to do the renovation that just did not have like the skill set to do the renovation efficiently. And so it was, while everything needed like paint and floors and new vanities and countertops and things like that, For the most part, they weren't more severe than that. We definitely ended up with some more work than anticipated in the retail spaces. There's always something crazy is going to come up. Tons of crazy stuff came up in this one. One of the things also that's pretty crazy in buying these like unsexy, like distressed assets is like if they haven't been rented for a while and the power and water is shut off, you don't really know what is to come when you turn it back on. So we had all these regulations when we went to turn the electric back on where they were like, oh, well, now somebody has to come inspect and now it has to be up to code this and that. And all of a sudden everything was, different. So we had to put more money into the electrical. Then it was like when the water is coming back on, like, are you going to have leaks? Yep. Like
Oh
instantly
no.
water's pouring into one of the units. Like,
Like how old
so
was the building?
the buildings are not that old. I want to say they're like 1990 and it's across four. One of them is much older. One of them's like a historic downtown brick building. That's the one that has like the residential upstairs and the retail downstairs.
Hmm.
And so but the other ones are newer, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's been years since they've
Yeah.
been rented, things are obviously you're going to need like exterminators and, things like this to get things under control. But yeah, we were lucky. I mean, it was definitely more standard unit updates and renovations, not a full gut. So that was cool. I mean, I really 250K for 24 units isn't too bad.
I mean, yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
deal.
so yeah, we were able to take the rents then from like they were getting like 500 something maybe six max on some of these studios, which are now all renting between like 8 and 850, just for an example of like the rent jump. So the value of the building, it was also really interesting the way to get into it. Cause also with like highly distressed assets, it can be challenging to figure out how to finance them. And we didn't like a lot of the like financial options. We wanted to take over the loan that they had because the sellers were having some trouble and really needed to get out of it. And the bank was like, no, it's not an assumable loan. Eventually, but they were like, we'll give you a new loan. We'll give it to you at 9%. But we were like, but we wanted it 6% like they have now.
Yeah.
So eventually we worked on this deal for like a year. It was tricky, tricky. And eventually we got the bank to agree to let us take over the LLC. This could be risky. In like some deals, this could be considered risky because like what if that LLC had liability, right? So there was a
Right.
whole process
Because
that we went
you would take on all their previous liability with the LLC.
exactly. So we were lucky in this case. These are the only properties that these LLCs had ever owned. And we hired, we had a lawyer that went through and did all this due diligence to make sure there weren't any open court cases. And, we've discovered like the money due that they agreed, contractually to pay for specific things that were owed by the LLC. It was an interesting process and it ended up being super successful because we got to just take on the property for what they owed. We got in around 600,000 and with the work that we did and increasing the rents at that market cap, I think it's probably worth around 1.3 or so now. So
Nice.
it was great. Yeah, it was a great project and I think distressed, not sexy, a little bit higher risk, but if you get in at the right price and if you have a contractor that you really trust, to do the work right, you can mitigate a lot of those risks. And so, I'm all about the distressed multifamily going forward.
Yeah,
Sure, I
that
want to
has
do a lot.
worked out really well. Like, I mean, you got to
Yeah,
have an appetite for it, though. It's not a
for
walk
sure.
in the park type of thing.
No, so I got some of just the craziest phone calls before we put a property manager over it. I was managing a lot in the renovation phase and
Was
just
this in DC or were you managing? Was this somewhere else and you're managing it remotely?
Eastern Shore, Maryland. Yeah, I actually manage everything remotely. That's the funniest thing about, I recently had a baby and I was going occasionally to the Eastern Shore to like look over my projects and like do something I thought I needed to do. Right. And then what was really interesting about getting pregnant and having the baby was like third trimester through the 11 months now of his life. I have not gone back there once. And I realized like I was doing unnecessary work that I could have just outsourced to my local team. And so now like
Like
everything,
what? Like what was like what
I
specifically?
so like I don't even remember why I thought I needed to do certain things before. But like, when something was like we were like staging things to sell and I would like want to go and see and make sure that they looked just perfect or like
I could see to myself wanting to do that also. Because you just
interior
want to
work.
see it. You want to be in person.
Yeah,
Make sure it's like done right, right?
exactly. Or like, oh, I don't know. There's just even doing tours now. Like I started doing tours virtually. I was like if, we had, because there used to be things where I would have my partner come and do tours from Salisbury, about 45 minutes. And he was like, oh, this is a lot. Paying somebody on site to do those also was like a lot. So it's like, what to do? We need to be able to outsource this or, make this more efficient. So we started getting the electronic lock boxes with the one-time codes and security with video. And I'll do tours sometimes. Like, not these are on the assets that I self-manage. Of course, on the ones that we have property managers, they handle this, but there's smaller multifamily that I still manage. And so yeah, so through all of this, if I, need to get a new tenant or something like that, I'm like, yeah, I will be on FaceTime with you. You're going to, use this code to get in and show me that you're getting the key out, showing me that you're putting it back in and doing the tour with them virtually. And then that's it. And that's been working. Again, that's a risk tolerance thing. I think some people would not feel comfortable, but for me, it's worked great. So I've just found, like, I've also started employing some of my tenants. There's a lot of women that live in my units that are interested in like extra work or learning more about property management. And so I'll have them go do things like, oh, I need a lockbox installed, or, I need like some trim painted, or something like this. Can you do a walkthrough for me? Like, let me know what this needs. So some things that I sometimes thought I need to do, like, do I need to go do a walkthrough of something? No. Like, no, I just outsource it now to trusted partners in the area. And I think it's great because you give somebody else opportunity and employment, and you don't need to do the things. You pull yourself out of the things that you were kind of keeping you busy that weren't like must haves for your time.
Super resourceful.
Yeah. I mean, for moms, like, especially new
Yeah.
moms,
You
it's a
gotta lean
must.
in on who can, yeah,
Yeah.
partners and getting other people to do stuff.
Yeah. It's great to be forced to be 100% remotely managing your real estate portfolio, though, because I think a lot of us go into real estate because we want freedom. And
Hmm.
then we realize, like, holy crap, why do I feel like I'm in the weeds? Like, why do I feel like this
Yeah,
actually work? Like, what is this passive, investing people talk about? This is actually there's work in
it is
building,
not. It is
you know?
passive, but not passive. If
Yeah,
you're
it's
an
like
active real estate investor, the keyword is active, right?
exactly. Like like when people say semi-passive. And so it was cool to be like forced to put myself out and be like, oh, check it out. Like I can actually do more of that. Like I might have to take annoying phone calls, but like I can take them from the beach in Portugal if I want to, or I could take them from the couch with my baby. So that is definitely the perk of real estate. And I think it's like sometimes we have to like reframe when we go into it. Sometimes I'll be like, how did I give myself another job? And I'm like, oh, right. But this job has a lot of flexibility. And that's the flexibility that I was seeking?
Yeah, I think that's listening. I mean, that's kind of ultimately, like you mentioned, why we all are got into real estate because we're looking for that freedom and figuring it out where we can just be like traveling and working on the beach and being able to manage it remotely or have
Yeah,
other people be matching for us. And, we
exactly.
just get paid.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, some of us are like more of micromanagers than others and have a harder time delegating. It's like the same as in an office as in a real estate business when you need to delegate things. You
Hmm.
need to micromanage and recognize that you can find people that are qualified to do these things and be able to rely on them and just make sure when
Yeah.
you're analyzing your deals that you have the money to pay them, so you're not doing that type of work and you're off then finding, because, part of building the real estate portfolio is having the time to be, analyzing and negotiating and taking on new deals also. So it's the life cycle.
Exactly. Yeah. You have a good story about a flip that went bad or it went good.
I do. Okay, so I do. Basically, we were renovating a house, a really big house. It was like 6, 7, 8 bedrooms, depending on how you look at it. And we were like, oh, great country home. It's gonna be beautiful.
Where was
When
this
it's
at?
This is in edge of Eden and Salisbury, Maryland. So a lot of what I've done has been on that like Eastern Shore area. And Salisbury's been a growing area, flipping there previously, all going well, except we're flipping this house as the economy is tanking. And it takes a little bit longer than we anticipate. And we hit that edge right where it was like interest rates going crazy, everybody's freaking out. And we're like, this is a cool house, it's really big. Why sell this as like a lesser performing flip than we anticipated it would be? Like, why don't we keep it? It's probably going to make an epic short-term rental. So we were super excited to make this Airbnb. It's a nice big country home. It had a pool in the back. Awesome. We refinance it, furnish it, professional photography, right? All the things, start to get the pool in good shape that hasn't been used in a gazillion years. And we get it on the platforms, and we have all these families super excited to rent this weekend country home with a pool. And there's like huge parties are booking, 12 people, 14 people, and like all hell breaks loose in this house. This house cannot with these parties. It's on septic. So
Oh,
one of the
uh-oh.
issues is septic is going crazy. Like never again will I have like a short-term rental or maybe like any rental on septic. Like I could not. They were putting like baby wipes in the toilet, just all the things because they didn't care.
Yeah,
They're like putting
because
it on
they don't care. They're renting it for the weekend, and that's it.
they don't know what a septic is, maybe. I don't know. So, anyways, like crazy stuff is happening. Like toilet bowls are overflowing and like water's falling through ceilings to like the floors beneath.
Oh
And
my
like,
god.
meanwhile,
That
I
is
also,
like the worst horror story I've
oh
ever
my God.
heard.
Oh, it gets so much worse. It gets even worse than this. So then, like, also the pool is like impossible to maintain. It's just been in like such bad condition. We're just like funneling money into this pool. Thousands of dollars going into this like into this pool. It is still not 100% perfect. People are like, it looks like the color's a little bit off. And meanwhile, I'm learning the pool maintenance is actually pretty expensive. And while like luxury Airbnb prices might justify, what this country home Airbnb was making did not justify this pool maintenance. And so that was like another big lesson learned. And so meanwhile, like the people are like the pool color or the water falling through the ceiling or whatever, like the flavor of chaos of the day was. And so my property manager, I had like a Airbnb manager on it, quits. Like
Oh
literally
no.
busy season. She's like, I can't have this. Like, this is more work than I anticipated. And like, I'm like, oh my goodness. So cancels the bookings and everything. And so we're like, all right, this is crazy. This is totally crazy. And I have to again pivot. And so we pivoted to a midterm rental strategy, which was like perfection for this house. We have a group now of it's like generally between 6 to 8 men who are working a project. They're like installing a system, like a facility down the street. They were super happy to have this big house rather than have to get everybody hotel rooms. So it's like one of those very classic, like corporate leases. And so we're able to cash flow, paying my financial partner 10% return for now, sit on it and get our money at the end when we sell. And this is working great for the asset. So it's like, it took a while to figure out like what was going to work for this one and definitely learn some lessons on the short-term strategy on this house for sure. But it's just you get your education investing and it's like that's why sometimes I'm just like don't keep trying to get educated, just like make your move and buy an asset because some of the things you could never anticipate. You can't be like, oh, your tenant next Tuesday is going to flush baby wipes and ruin your septic system. It's like things are just going to come up as you're being a real estate investor and you're going to learn from it. And you need to be like very nimble, and be able to be agile with your strategy. And also, my recommendation is like always have multiple strategies that will work with one single asset and multiple exit strategies.
I
Is
think a lot of investors fail to think about that you should have
yeah,
multiple exit strategies. Because what you
exactly.
think when you start, it's not, it doesn't always work out.
Right, right, right. And sometimes you could buy a flip that can't be rented. Like you have no choice. And that's why you hear people sometimes being like, oh, I lost, 30 grand on this flip or whatever. It's like if you can't hold, some people just also won't hold and rent things. I don't mind. I manage rentals. I have a rental portfolio also, but like sometimes those numbers don't work. Like in DC, if you are flipping like a luxury flip in DC, like you can't rent it for what that mortgage payment is going to be once you refi it.
Mhm.
So, it's definitely something to think about, depending on what type of investor you are. If you're like married to this specific type of flip and you have one be all end all exit strategy, or if you're going to look at deals where you have multiple strategies. And, especially like I think a lot of us have learned in this like economic chaos, it's really helpful. And the safest assets are the ones that you can do. You can have multiple strategies that work on, or that you just invest in straight resilient assets, like, asset classes like self-storage that have been pretty resilient through economic shifts. Also, something I've been looking more and more into these days and, sharing about with the people in my community as well. It's like, owning a resilient real estate portfolio. I think we're
Yeah.
learning, is more important than ever. Of course, there's all the investors that went through like 2008, you know, but for some of us, it's our first like major crisis that we're investing through. But so
So,
then we,
like, going back to self-storage though, why do you think that is more resilient than other investments that you could do? Well, first, there's no actual tenants, right? So you don't have to worry
yeah, I mean,
about
and it's just
toilets and stuff.
interesting. Yeah, like just doing the research, like self-storage continued to perform when a lot of other assets were not. And I mean, you think about it, if people are in economic crisis and they're downsizing and things like that, like they need storage. Like there's some
Mhm.
of these like just lifestyle or like life phases that also like make it beneficial to use and have accessible self-storage. And then like you said, I mean, there's all the reasons just with like the reduced headaches. Like you don't have a lot of things I've run into in management of my, multifamily assets, for example, they're not issues in, like nobody's flushing baby wipes down their toilet in their self-storage room because it doesn't have, right? It doesn't have one. So, there's just some things that you don't deal with in self-storage. So I think a lot of investors also that do these other strategies that are a little bit more higher maintenance end up being like, like what could I do? And, same thing with mobile home parks. I started investing in mobile home parks as well, because when you have the tenant owned homes, the tenant is responsible for their maintenance. So whatever's going on with their toilet, is not my problem. And so that, is just another level of being able to collect lot rent and not have to worry about the maintenance of the building itself. And so, there's a lot of different strategies that you can look at. I think it's just smart to have the diversified portfolio and like always be thinking about, what's resilient as well and what again helps to take you out of active real estate investing into that more passive space.
Right. Key. Totally key.
Yeah, for sure.
Your deals. Well, which one has been your favorite? Which one has been and at the same time, probably most profitable?
Yeah, so it's funny. It's still my first house hack. I have like a very special place in my heart for that deal. And it's funny, like I've done other deals that were also quite profitable. Like you would think I'd say like we did a wholesale deal where we didn't have to do any of the active work, right? Of like managing the asset, doing the renovation project or anything. And we made almost $500,000 on this wholesale of a really big portfolio, and there were several, a couple different partners involved in that deal. That was great, and that was definitely like a sparkly moment for me as well in life, being like, wow, like we made this really big deal happen.
Where did you
But
find the wholesale? Where did you find that deal?
so my partner actually on the Eastern Shore, who I also did this other multifamily deal with, I've done a lot of different deals with, brought it to me because he's like, I don't know, I have this deal and I feel like I can get this for 2.7. This is what the guy wants. I think it's really worth like 3.2, but like I don't know how to do this deal. Like could we do this? And I was like, sure, we can try. Like, why not? Right. And so it was definitely just, doing the numbers to make sure that it was a deal that was going to work for the right investor, and then bringing in the partner that had access to these types of buyers. And so it took a while to structure and make the whole deal work and find the right buyer. But it was great. There ended up being four of us in the end. And it was a win-win. Sometimes people are like, oh, wholesale deals, like not good, or worry that somebody's getting what they want, somebody's not getting what they want. But this guy was completely adamant. This is what he wanted. He wanted to walk away. He wanted his 2.7. He didn't want to have to worry about anything else. Go, you get rid of this for me for 2.7. We were like, okay. And so, we found buyers that needed X amount of return, and they were buying portfolios, and they were happy with the numbers that they were getting. And then at the end of the day, we split, what we received. And I had a like big celebration for that. It was also my first wholesale deal. So like I bought them, but I'd never done one myself like that. And so that was super exciting. But still, like it still was not as exciting to me as like when I sold that first house hack, because I got a check for $117,000 that was tax free, right? Which was super cool because of the whole house hacking,
Mhm.
primary residence strategy. And I had a really young daughter at that point. My daughter was like 3 years old, and I got to see her like hold this check that I felt like
Aw.
that a huge dent in, like, say, call it a college education, right? And there's
Yeah.
some moms that work like 18 years to try to save that money for their kids. And I felt so grateful I discovered something that gave us that nest egg, like when she was that young. And I had also done a little bit of like investigating on the numbers. Like, all right, so I made this much money and I did how much actual work, like active work on managing this house hack. And it turned out to be like $500 an hour that I made for the amount of work it actually took to like, every few months find a roommate, kind of thing. And it was really interesting that it had been that lucrative, and given me that much freedom and launched me into this, this real estate investing adventure. And so that one just still has like a very warm, fuzzy place in my heart. And I just think it's like an amazing way for people to get started. So I love sharing more about it.
Yeah, especially when you're younger and just starting out in real estate. I mean, it's such a good way. I don't think a lot of people think of that. I wish I knew about that, like in my 20s, instead of,
Exactly.
I bought like a studio and it would
Yeah.
have been so much smarter for me to like do the house hacking thing.
Buy a house and yeah.
Walk out with $117,000 check.
Yeah. And that's a thing about, like houses just appreciate differently. And if you're in a high appreciation market, I mean, it's something I wish I knew about, when I was younger. I didn't, and that's okay. We start where we start, but it is like that you want to share and like help other people to get started. Cause like think about like if I hadn't, started when I started even, I didn't start till I was 30. Like I did not, I think I was like 29 or something when I was making those offers. And I think I got the first place under contract. It was something like this. Yeah, I wish I'd started at like 24, 25. I wish I had bought a house in college that I like rented out to roommates, but it's okay. You start where you start. But I think we need to just like get away from these myths. Like somebody needs 20% down, to buy their first home. And it's so much more maintenance than a condo. Like really, like condos, you still have to maintain the interior
Mhm.
anyway. Yeah, you don't have to worry about the roof or HVAC, but like I don't do roof work or HVAC work. I like literally make a phone call if I need something like that done, right? And then it's like everything in the house you still, maintain. So I think that there's some myths that prevent people from making those like single family home investments and single family homes just with like the appreciation trajectory. Like it can be so basic to get started, just like a few single families, even like what we know about natural appreciation. You buy something today that's like 400 something $1,000, that's going to be $1 million asset when it's paid off in 30 years. Like what if you just bought a
Yeah.
few of those and had renters paying them?
And then
Like
rent,
it.
I think there's this stat rent doubles like every 10 years. So
Yeah, so I mean, and you're gonna
just
have
hold on
renters
to it.
paying them off,
Mhm.
and so yeah, I think it's like so important to just get started. For anybody who's listening, who's been thinking about it, not investing yet, don't overcomplicate it, just even a few small assets, that you get now could really pay off big time in the long run.
Okay, so before we close out, I like to do in every episode quick rapid fire round of
Yeah.
questions. What is one trend that you think investors should be paying close attention to right now?
Oh, I think we're all like watching the economy right now, which is super important, but I think that's something else that's like sneaking up that some investors are really focused on, but others I feel like have not really been adopting it is AI. Like AI is going to be, it already kind of is huge and it's going to be huge in the real estate space. So, for so long we've been like manually doing like analysis of a deal. And now there's like a prompt. You could just put the
Yeah.
prompt in, chat GPT and it just spits out the analysis to you, so it might have taken an hour or two before it might take, minutes now. So you can do market analysis the same way, like a market analysis that would have been very heavy before is now very quick, to get that very customized report if you have access to and if you're using, these specific prompts and different tools and things like that. We're seeing it with like social media. We're seeing it even with property management now. There's a lot of AI. There's a lot of these AI agents that even are kind of like automating entire processes. So before it's like you're putting something in Chat GPT and you get some content out, but you don't have to then go post it here and customize it to that and post it there and there. an AI agent can just go ahead and do that whole process, right across that whole process. And so, people who are cutting edge with this and implementing it now are going to be in a great place, like very competitive. It'll just be the norm, right? But right now, since not everybody is implementing it, it's a great time to start implementing AI in the real estate business. So you can be the one that's, competitive and getting ahead in the space. So that's something that I've been looking at and kind of like working into my processes here and
Yeah,
there.
it
Yeah,
definitely AI is everywhere, and if you're not learning or
yes,
doing it right now, you're gonna be left in the dust, especially,
exactly.
if you're an investor.
Yeah,
AI
yeah,
can help with underwriting and everything, so if you
yeah,
wanna get the deal quicker, you gotta do it.
yeah. It's totally worth the investment.
Okay, what's one book every investor should read?
One book I read over and over every like year or two is 10X, Grant Cardone's 10X. I love that book. It's like totally fires me up. And I love how he talks about how we have like a responsibility to like live at our potential and fulfill our potential as humans. Like that we've got to do that. Like we're here to do this. And we're like doing a disservice if we are not operating at our optimal level. And I'm like, yeah, it's just like really like that book really fires me up and it makes you think a lot bigger. And the other lesson I love from it is that he talks about how like 10x means also that oftentimes you have to put 10 times the amount of work into achieving a goal than you initially thought. It doesn't mean because you tried this one or two times that your goal is bad or you can't achieve your goal. You just underestimated the amount of work it takes. And so I love that too, because it helps us to not walk away from something that, like we were really interested in because it didn't work the first or second or even third time. Like keep working at it. It's just 10 times harder to achieve that awesome goal that you're
Yes,
trying to achieve. So that's a great one.
grit. I think it's called grit.
Yes.
Alright, first thing you do if you woke up tomorrow with $10,000,000.
With $10 million, I would definitely heavily invest in my nonprofit organization and the humanitarian aid work that we are doing. Because I said in the beginning, like I got into this game for impact, making impact with money. Like we need a lot more money to make a lot more positive impact in this world. And that's definitely where I'd be following it.
Can you, mention your nonprofit? What's the name of your nonprofit?
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's just in the launch phase right now. I've lined up my board and I'm really excited to get things underway. I've always dreamt of being able to show with this nonprofit a different way that nonprofits can be funded, basically, and nonprofits can make their impact in the world. Nonprofits are generally very resource constrained. And I feel very fortunate now to have learned all of these tools about wealth building in the real estate space that are legal to employ in the nonprofit space as well. They can also own real estate. They can also take loans to buy real estate. They can rent real estate. So, what I've learned about wealth building in real estate, I am excited to now leverage and use for this nonprofit organization to build a huge asset base within the organization and be able to use the funds that are being generated to give to some of these organizations that are doing really critical work in all over the world in high crisis areas where women and children are facing housing and food insecurity. I'm very mostly concerned with there's people in refugee camps, and I'd love to be able to show that by offering also affordable housing. So a lot of this real estate that we're going to accumulate in this nonprofit organization is going to house folks in the US who need affordable housing, foster kids who are aging out of the foster care system, veterans, there's, women who are escaping domestic violence and need shelter. There are so many people, who need good, safe, affordable housing in the US. And it's just I'm so excited to be able to provide that while at the same time being able to, amass wealth through a large real estate nonprofit that we can do this other good work with. And I think the key is regenerating funds. So what we do in the nonprofit sector oftentimes is give away a donation. You give away a donation, they spend it, they need another one. You give it away, they spend it. With real estate, we know that we can use the same money over and over again, right? We can the BRRRR strategy, right? We can renovate, we can refinance, we can get our money back, and we have the same money to do more good work with. So I'm excited to use this kind of like infinite return strategy within the nonprofit sector to show we can regenerate, money and to do more good work with and kind of change the game on how things are funded and the amount of impact we can make.
Very cool. I'm excited to for it to get started
Yeah.
and know like when it's up and running and everything.
Definitely keep you in the loop. I'm really excited too.
Next question. What's a real estate buzzword you secretly can't stand?
It's the passive income. It's that word passive income. That one, we touched on this a little bit, right? It makes me crazy that you'll see a lot of times like online, people are like, oh, get into real estate. It's so passive. I'm always on the beach now. I work like 2 hours a day. And you can get there. Yes, eventually there is a lot that goes into creating, building a real estate empire that you can step away from. And a lot of times passive income is really coming from like being a private lender, giving somebody your money, getting X interest and not having to do any of the work, in the weeds, or being a limited partner, in a syndication or something like this. And a lot of the people who are out there, though, actually being an active investor and building a portfolio, it takes work. And so I really appreciate when people say like semi-passive, income, because even when you get an asset stabilized, like even when you put a property manager on a multifamily building, like you are still getting pinged, things are still coming up, like there are still going to be headaches. And so that is definitely a buzzword that I feel like takes away from the reality. Well, really diving into real estate full time and building an empire really takes.
Yeah, I mean, managing an apartment, asset management is not easy still, even when you
Right.
have a property manager. Managing the property manager is an is a whole nother
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, I think it's something that people don't, when they first get into it, like don't anticipate. Like you just think like, oh, I handed it off to the property manager, right? And now I'm like, I'm good. I'm gonna go like hang out on the beach. And you can hang out on the beach, but you're probably still gonna need to make phone calls and you're still gonna need to take phone calls and be super careful, with your financial analysis, like overseeing what's going on and really having a critical eye because not all property management companies are great,
Yeah.
and sometimes they do need a little bit of micromanaging to ensure it's like, one of the phrases is like I like and it's true is like nobody's going to manage your asset like it's their own. Like only you are going to manage your asset like it's your own. And so we oftentimes will take approaches or go the extra mile with an asset that maybe, property management company won't do that. And I feel like I've been there, things like maintenance work, for example, where it's like I get really high quotes if I try to go with the property management company, whereas like I know I can find, guys on my team that are going to do that work for hundreds less. But they're not as concerned about like every granular piece of that
Right.
bottom line. They're doing their job. They're getting a quote or two, and that's what it is. What it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just it's a different amount of heart and work that you put in, to your own asset.
Okay, last question. What's one mantra or quote you live by?
Oh, there's so many. It's so hard to just choose one. I think one quote I really love that I think back to a lot is life is not about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And it was spray painted on a wall in Panama when I was living in Panama. And I was like in one of my creating my life modes. And I love that because it really just frames how like day to day we have the ability to wake up and decide what we're creating in our life and in this world today. It doesn't have to be the same as yesterday, right? Like we are here to create what we want to see in our lives in this world. And so I find that very empowering. But then on the other side, I always have to remind myself, like, there's definitely other ones where, like, on the daily grind, I need to constantly tell myself, like, done is better than perfect. Done is better than done because I want everything to be like 110%. And it's like, we don't live in that world and that's not
Hmm.
realistic, and getting things out there is so much more important than getting perfection. A little bit of perfection is getting like a lot of heart and authenticity and work.
Yeah.
Work done is out there so that's another one that I feel like on the regular I go back to.
Well, thank you, Mariel. This was really great.
This
Such an awesome episode. Thank you for sharing it. So many good
Thank you.
stories.
Thank you for
Where
having
can people learn more about like your nonprofit and Powerhouse Women?
We'll have a website soon. It's in the works right now. Powerhouse Women, we do have a website. I think it'll be in the show notes.
Yes,
Right.
we'll link everything in the show notes for
Yep. And
sure.
then so we have a YouTube channel where I post sessions when people come to do like flash mentorship with the group. There's a lot of free education on the YouTube channel, also a free Facebook group. that you can hop into. And we also have an Instagram account. So I'll check those out in the show notes. And please follow or reach out and join in the fun.
Thank you
Thanks so much.
for joining today's episode of Invest in Rome. If you found value in this episode, please share it with a friend. New episodes dropping weekly. Like, follow, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Dear No. Keep investing, keep roaming, and keep living the life you deserve.